welcome to this week's show. This week I want to mention something that I had mentioned on an earlier video. Basically, humans' very strong desire to love mysteries. Now, we really do. We watch crime shows on TV. It's very compelling. We play Clue or Cluedo, things like that. There's no doubt about it that most humans just love a mystery where they don't quite know all the facts involved in something. Now, there's nothing wrong with that in a lot of situations, of course. If you play Cluedo or, watching a crime show on TV or something like that, it's just a bit of entertainment. But the thing to really consider, in my opinion, is your way of thinking when you are watching a show like that, for example, or involved in any activity. Because really, when you think about it, the flip side to that way of thinking is not knowing certain facts, and in certain situations that can be absolutely diabolical. So for example, I just gave you a description of watching a TV show, a crime show or something. That could be entertainment, but imagine if you were lost in a mountainous area and you didn't have GPS or maps or anything like that. Would the same sense of mystery about the situation be as exhilarating? I doubt it. You not knowing where you are, not knowing where help was, and so on. So you kind of have the same way of thinking in two different situations, but the latter would be absolutely diabolical. So the question then is, what's the problem? Well, the problem is those people who really seriously love mysteries and get into this kind of way of thinking where they just love not knowing the answers to things, and they make assumptions and they surmise about things very strongly, to the point where they're quite convinced that their assumptions are correct. The problem is that when they end up in a very serious situation, like for example lost in the forest, or a more common day example would be nowadays chatting to someone online who in actuality is a scammer. Someone's trying to get money off them or something, which is very prevalent now, unfortunately. The problem is, can they take that way of thinking and just switch to a more effective way of thinking for the situation? Because honestly, your love of the mysterious in those situations, it's not going to help you at all. You really want to know the facts. You want to stick to what you know, and you wouldn't really want to glorify your assumptions based on your imagination. Okay? So what I'm suggesting is that people who really seriously get into these mysteries and all, and surmise and come up with assumptions about things, and then go with these assumptions in their imagination to the point where they're almost convinced that they're true, when they're in a situation which requires a very different way of thinking, are they even able to transition to a different way of thinking that's going to help them? Or, can they do it, but it's too late by the time they do it? So what I'm getting at is your way of thinking, and I think it really ought to be based on evidence, things you know, and leave the times where you want to make assumptions about things and delve into mysteries, to merely times when you want to be entertained. That's all. Anyway, just thought I'd talk about that today. But next you'll see the sketch that I've done, and I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching. So that's this week's video. This week, you know, it ended up pretty abstract, which is cool. I quite enjoyed doing it like that. It sort of like ends up, the landscape that I was looking at was sort of stimulus for something quite abstract, really. A lot of the reason being that when you have, as you can see in the distance there, just a massive whatever in a line, you know, with no sort of gaps between them, when I'm using only one color, one tone, it just ends up a bit of a blur, you know. So I've got to then revert to whatever I can do at the end, which is basically just looking at the entire composition, tampering with it a bit, and just focusing on the sort of abstract composition of it rather than making a detailed realistic sketch, which you could do of this scene if you're using paint, for example, in different colors. So it requires a different approach when you're just using one color, as I've found. And you know, I've only figured out this since I've been 2 years now using Indian ink, and it's just things I worked out as I've gone along, really. But yeah, it's different than using paint, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks very much for watching this week. Don't know where I'll be next week, somewhere in sunny Florida, and have a fantastic week. And join me again next week on Indian Ink Sketches on Instagram and Simon Boyd Art on Facebook for another fantastic show where I go sketching somewhere. And we'll see you then. Thanks.